Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Franklin County Fiscal Court Park Committee meeting for June the 2nd. We welcome all of you all that are on Facebook and Zoom as part of this meeting. We're meeting here at Lakeview Park, at the Carter House at Lakeview Park, and we have a lot of special guests. This is the kickoff meeting for our Hitchcock Design Group's feasibility study of the park itself. And we're going to do a little go around for introduction of everybody. I'm going to start with myself. I'm Houston Wells, the County Judge Executive. There will be some that will not be on camera, but that will have them introduce themselves, and they will be voice recognized. But let's start in the back, and let's start with the Hitchcock Group themselves. Mr. Royer, if you would, please introduce your staff. And thank you and welcome to Franklin County.
Well, thank you all for having us. We're really excited to be here. We're excited about the project. My name is Randy Royer. I'm with Hitchcock Design Group. I'm the principal in charge. This is Andy Howard. He's our design principal on the project. He's also with Hitchcock Design Group. This is Shannon Creasy. She's going to be the project manager from Hitchcock Design Group. Phil Parnan. Is with Pros, and he is one of our consultants on the team. And we've got Kay McDaniel from BFW, and they are the engineer for the team. Now I've got just the agenda. We've got a few just kind of mundane things to go over as far as project schedule and those types of things. And then we're going to dive into a workshop. And when I don't know, how much time does everyone have? We have on the agenda to go to about 3:30, but if some folks need to leave earlier, we can push the workshop up if that would work better.
Right now, I'm sure 3:30 would work, but let's wait and see what the superintendent has.
And once they get here, if they need to leave earlier, we can bump that up and come back to some next other one.
Okay.
So first of all,
if you don't mind, let's introduce everybody.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go
And then
ahead.
we'll come back to the agenda. Okay. Charlie, you want to go?
Charlie Lewis, the County Park Director.
Squire Michael Muller, County Magistrate.
Robert Hewitt, Planning and Building Codes Director.
Ramon Johnson, I think, Director, Kentucky State University.
Jackie Duvall, Associate Athletic Director, Kentucky State University.
Scotty Tracy, Magistrate, 4th District.
Sean Pickens, the Director of Parks and Recreation and Historic Sites for the City of Franklin.
Ann Northcutt, Grants Administrator for Franklin County.
Andrew Tippett, Internet and Technology Coordinator, Franklin County.
Houston Barber, Superintendent, Franklin Independent Schools.
Thank you for being here. Thanks everybody for being here. And as just one second, well, this is a regular park meeting. Charlie, if you'll go through the first part of the park meeting, and then we'll get into the.
Thank you, Judge.
Take us up today.
Gotcha, appreciate that. Again, welcome everybody today for the kickoff meeting. A milestone at Lakeview Park for sure. If everybody hasn't done so, there's a sign-in sheet, and we may just start passing that around just to make sure everybody has a chance to sign in. We want everybody's contact information, email, phone number, if you're fine with it, please do that. And then our next item on our park committee agenda is a review of the minutes from our, did you get a copy of that from the 12th?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move for approval of the minutes. Second from the 12th.
Thank you. It's very basic, but just part of the process. Thank you all for those motions. And then we'll move on to new business, which wraps us back around. Mr. Cobb, welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Cobb, Franklin County School Superintendent, just joined us. Thank you, sir. And we'll kick it back over to Mr. Royer to see what we got for the feasibility study.
All right. So what we'll start off with, just quickly go over some of these items. Communications protocol for the project. We have been going Charlie has been kind of helping us out. So as the team, we'll send emails through you, and will you disseminate that
Sure.
to everybody?
Absolutely, and I'll use that sign-in sheet to
Okay.
keep everybody connected. So I need your emails, please.
We will send out, meeting notes, and that'll have all that information on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, as far as the process goes, we talked about this during our interview process, but just for some of the new folks in the room, we've got really a three-step process. The first step is to analyze, and that's where we will collect information. Or later this afternoon, we're going to go tour the site. Hopefully, we're not going to get rained on all the time. And we'll just take some photographs. But we'll be collecting information about just the community in general, as well as the park itself. So during the analyze phase, we'll pull all that information together. We'll also we're going to need to find a time to schedule some stakeholder meetings. We got to determine who those key stakeholders are in the community. And then we're also going to need to schedule a event here in the park as well, as we talked about. So we'll get through the analyze phase. As we're doing that, we have a connect phase, and that's how we're going to connect to the community itself. Go through Facebook, through or social media, I should say, and then the website. So we'll be getting information. We need to determine who we need to coordinate that with, as far as who's going to put the website up for the county, and then we'll provide information for that. The connect phase is really about community engagement and how we keep that going throughout the life of the project. We'll develop the program during that time. As we get feedback from the community, there will be an online survey that will go up relatively. We're going to try to get that out fairly quickly to give people plenty of time to engage with that. And then we'll get into the envision phase of the project. And that's when we take all the information that we hear with the things that the community would like to see in the park, take all these ideas, and that's when we pull it all together and we develop a design concept for the park that hopefully addresses as many of the community's needs as we can. And after driving around, we got in town a little bit early today and drove around. It's like we've got really good bones. I mean, we've worked on some parks in other communities where it's basically a cornfield, and this is the park is, you got beautiful topography. We've got something to work with here, so we're excited about that. So as far as the project area, we've got some aerial photographs of the park. But basically, it's our understanding it is just the Lakeview Park property proper is what we're going to be designing. As far as goals and objectives, that's one question that I just kind of wanted to toss out to you as kind of a smaller group. And we might get into this a little more when we get into the workshop. But right now, kind of start thinking about each of your, the things that you've heard in the community or your perspective. We want to hear what your goals and objectives might be for the park itself. And as far as constituent interest, jurisdictional agencies, potential stakeholders, and this is kind of the conversation that we have now. As far as the community goes, who are some of the key stakeholders that we should be reaching out to that would be important? Examples would be the school system would be obviously a key community stakeholder. Maybe possibly if there's an HOA of one of the neighboring neighborhoods, that would be a key community stakeholder. So feel free to just toss things out if you.
Well, fortunately, we have several here.
Yeah, which
The university is here and they're big in our community as well.
Okay.
I think another one would be the arts community.
Yeah, it's pretty big, we have the social department on the west side, so I'm not sure who the best contact for that might be.
Melanie.
Sean, you think Melanie would be,
Yes.
Melanie Van Houten, we can get you her information.
And Joanna Hay
Mhm.
as well.
I think probably, the other part of the artist would be, the actual side. And that would be Karen Gatter, as well.
Okay. What about athletic groups?
That's what I was sitting there thinking, what about like what we have now, like soccer,
YMCA.
softball?
Okay.
The city is here for softball.
What about disc golf? It's pretty big now.
There is a Frankfurt, and Sean knows as well, there's a Frankfurt Disc Golf Association.
Yeah.
I have contacts for that, because they schedule tournaments that week. Okay. So, definitely.
And what about volleyball?
Volleyball, that starts, there's a city contact for that.
Okay.
Clint Collins.
Then Randy, you had mentioned HOAs. I know the Silver Lake subdivision across the street has a strong HOA. We also brought up the Indian Hills. They do not have an HOA. And Scotty, do you know if the Maples has any kind of an HOA? Do you know if they have an HOA?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's basically 3 neighborhoods that surround the park. So 1 out of 3 have an HOA. So I don't know. We can maybe put a sign at a couple of the entrances. Just a thought to the other ones.
Yeah, well, and what we may do is if, when we have the community event here in the park, I think we want to make sure that we can make sure that those folks know.
Yeah.
In some communities, I think we talked about this actually during the interview process, some of the communities that we've worked in the past, if you got, utility company, you just slip something in the bill that says, oh, by the way, there's going to be a meeting at the park. That might be one way.
We'll also get that out.
Yes.
Yes. By the way, Andrew Tippett in the back, is going to be your contact for social media.
Okay.
He will be handling all of that through our, social media conduits.
Okay, so Andrew, you have a business card. I'll get you that. Thank you very much.
Randy, what about, we have a very strong Kiwanis group. They might even be willing to help with that day that you're wanting to get information off people or something. Just a thought,
That could be very helpful.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that we might want to consider as part of this as well too. And it's not just so much us hearing from the stakeholders, but also utilizing the stakeholders network to build excitement and energy for the process that we're going to go through so that we get a lot of input. So I think if there's the more civic organizations, especially if they've had any level of involvement with parks as far as donations or volunteer work, what have you, those would all be great to invite. So thinking of Optimist, thinking of Lions Club, thinking of any clubs and associations in the civic realm that you have would be good. Just one question, do you all happen to have a fair board as well?
Yes.
They would also.
We're going to mention that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we use the schools and their resources to reach out.
Oh, yeah.
Senior activity center, so we get that to the grant.
I can say you are a stakeholder of this, because that we use for the city. We probably didn't touch every single group, but we touched a lot. And of course, they're all in the city and county too, so.
Okay.
Do you have the tennis association on yours?
Yes.
Because they're out there too.
Now, since we have the college and the local school district, are there student clubs or, for example, I don't know if there might be environmental groups in schools that might be interested in the park? That you know of, or you could get us names for?
I think Houston probably has some type of a one call or something where you can contact all of the stakeholders, and I don't think we need to limit it. Let's, when it comes time to share information, so we can get that information out. I'm good with setting up everyone.
Okay.
Because you don't want to miss a stakeholder that you might think has an interest. And it can be an information.
Yes. But we want to get this out, get information out to as many people as possible. We're got a few different ways that we're going to do this. One way is we'd like to be able to have some sit down with specific stakeholder. So, because small group tend to, people will open up a little bit more. So we're going to want to identify some key stakeholder groups. And then we want to take advantage of this broader list of stakeholder groups, because that's how we can really start to make sure that, hey, we're going to have a meeting and we want to make sure that, that people show up to this event, or, hey, check out Facebook because we've got a survey up and we want to make sure that as many people as we can get to take the survey, do that.
And in terms of the smaller group, I can't stop thinking about this, but I would say that, our athletic directors, our art directors in our school systems, the ones who direct the plays and all of those performances, some key principals at each level, because again, these are folks that touch every single kid, and they would be in at least a role that you're kind of talking about, representing others in kind of a smaller fashion. So, I agree.
Is there a economic development commission or a director?
Yes. Brad Thomas, frankly, there's one of the, when you talked about soccer a little bit ago, and I was thinking about Brad, but Brad Thomas is an economic developer in the town. I think that his voice would be well heard.
Well, we do have an economic development, correct?
What about library services?
Yes.
I just don't think we should be exclusionary.
Yeah. So thinking of exclusionary, thinking of diversity, equity, and inclusion, are there any groups that exist on that front that we should be inviting as well?
Four.
Four, yeah.
Any others?
Second, what about the fast track club and things like that? Different groups, you're part of that, but just others that have a voice in the community.
Yeah, there are some youth organizations that have been started, just by kind of local people that I'm thinking Guru, my club Fast Track, and then the one that maybe runs the middle of Next Gen Athletic. There's several that are just kind of youth organizations that could be helpful to reach out to.
Did you say fast?
Fast.
We did say one, we haven't said one.
Well, what about their softball leagues?
Softball does come through the city.
Yeah.
Okay. But they use these people.
You got a bunch of youth,
For the youth.
yeah, players, groups.
Those are kept.
What about a historical society or anybody that deals with historic properties?
Franklin County Trust.
Equestrian. Is there an equestrian group?
It really comes through the fair, that, Charlie, I don't know.
It's faded out,
Yeah.
They haven't been very active.
Well, we also have Walk Bike Frankfurt, and we have Envision Franklin County. Pretty strong in the community.
Frankfurt Strikers. Is that what it's called? Frankfurt Strikers.
We already talked about golf.
We have not. There is the Men's Association from Juniper Hills. Sean.
Yeah.
As a group, I don't know, Charlie, you know.
Would that be more along the lines of your high school coaches? Obviously, this is the practice, so.
Yeah, that would probably be a better target.
Yeah.
About environmental groups, Sierra Club, anything like that?
Division Franklin.
Division Franklin. Quite comfortable with that. Yeah. And then the walk by Frankfurt has been big in the connectivity throughout the community, so that'd be a.
Got rid to remove invasive species.
Franklin County Extension might also be a good contact.
Chamber of Commerce.
4-H club. 4-H club. Well, obviously, tourism,
Tourism, yeah, Chamber of Commerce.
What about the skateboard group? Since previous conversation, not being able to move back, that's like the jump from
I've got some
skateboard.
contacts for the group, not really, it's not an actual group itself, but I do have some contacts.
I think there's a couple that have pretty big webs, Facebook presence that can probably get the word out. We have better title.
Is there a group that rents this home regularly, or any groups that have regular rentals within the park?
We have a few that rent some picnic shelters regularly. The house itself is usually, weddings and wedding ceremonies. There's a few, family reunions that we have. I've got a whole list of those individuals that we rent facilities. If we've got repeat customers, we can help out.
Yeah, if there's some artists that repeat, that would be good.
Okay.
What about, did I read somewhere, did you guys just put in a dirt bike track or have? plans?
Well, in the back there, we work with the county school system. That's actually their property back there. But there is a bike association, mountain bike association, that would be good to be involved in. So we're in the process of building a pump track back there, as a practice track for the high school teams or anybody who wants to use it. So, Troy Hearn or Dustin Scott would be the contact there.
Okay. Any scouting groups of interest in the park as well, as we should look at inviting?
Yeah, we do. They use our facilities regularly.
All right. Anyone else you can think of?
What about any special needs groups?
We have the Special Olympics, or Stewart Home, and the Stewart Home. The Stewart Home uses our golf facility weekly.
The Special Olympics is currently used the
Well,
facility?
the Stewart Home does, and Special Olympics, they've used our facility before with softball tournaments.
Okay.
We have a pretty good extensive list there.
Yeah.
Well, and if,
Real.
yeah, not typically happens after the meeting is when you go, oh yeah, all these people. If you think of the, new other groups, let us know. Send them through Charlie.
The good thing is, I would say probably 80% of that list is active. They're not just groups that are stagnant, they're active in the community, most areas.
Okay. Well, the next item on the list is really talking about budgeted costs and revenue sources. From that standpoint, at some point, we need to get information on currently what is being spent on the park as far as what's the maintenance cost, staff, Bill.
Yeah, I'd love to see 5 years of past actuals if we could. We'll begin to put those in some pivot tables and start to look at those in many different angles. That's usually where we can see opportunities, whether it be for cost containment or additional revenue.
Okay, we can get that too.
Yeah, I've reached out to our treasurer.
Oh, we've already done that, okay.
And she's in the process of compiling information.
Okay. Is there any other data, Bill?
Yeah, we got that extensive list. I'm not sure, the majority of what I'm going to be looking for, Charlie, you'd probably be able to capture for us. If it exists, some of the things don't exist. It just depends based on what your needs have been over the years. So I think you forwarded that extent, that list. So I don't know that that's a good utilization to run through all of that. And I can just reach out to you and we can go in more detail and tell you what components are within those documents that we'd be looking for, because you may have it under a different name than what we're used to.
Yeah, I've read through that. We do have most of it.
Fantastic.
Pretty great.
And I think most of the stuff I'll need, I can talk to Mr. Hewitt online as well.
So on the, okay, and then you want to talk about schedule?
Yeah, so going back to our 3-stage processes with analyze, connect, and vision, we are aiming to have it all wrapped up by the middle of September. So that really breaks down to the analyze phase would be done mid-June. So again, that's really getting back, taking these notes and really getting a lot of information from the team so that we can really dive into this. We'll then break into the connect phase. And again, we can talk a little bit more on that. I know summer is coming up. It's kind of hard with these stakeholder meetings, whether we come back down and try to get a group together, or I know people love Zoom these days. So that's just something, talking timeline, we'll want to work with you guys to see what's best, whether to do this online or to get events where we can come back together. But the connect phase will be 6 weeks, ending at the end of July, which will then give this team really 6 weeks to put our heads together and come up with that preliminary master plan to be done by mid-September. So again, those are goals. These will change just depending on people's schedules and everything like that. But that is what our, right now, our goal is.
Yeah.
Charlie. I just,
Well, Charlie, one of the things, I know earlier we spoke about, you were gonna give us a schedule of what kind of events were happening on the weekends. Because I think from our perspective, to be able to show up and have activities going on in the park, we can set up, depending on what it is, if we need to set up tables or what have you, give many presentations, but to be able to reach out to people that are actually here in the park. We'd really like to do that. Plus, we have an opportunity to invite people to come in as well. So we've talked about it as a team, and I think our best bet from our perspective is July 17th, the weekend of July 17th.
or in the park.
For in the park type of event.
Let's see if the Hancock Pavilion is open, Charlie, on the 17th.
Well, it is, but they're setting up for the following week is the fair. You want to do it during the fair?
No.
Y'all have deep fried food here?
We do.
You got deep fried Oreos, I'll be here.
But we can definitely, since the fair hasn't officially kicked off that weekend prior, we can make that 17th.
Let's keep the Hancock Pavilion open for the.
Yeah.
Well, how much time are you thinking here? Are you gonna do it in the morning for 4 hours? I don't know, what's your thought on that?
I was thinking, well, we wanted to find out if there was an event. So if there was a tournament of some sort, it would be one thing. If it's just, we're just gonna let people know that we're gonna be here, then we could set up maybe, we might be able to do, I'd say like a morning, noonish, and then afternoon, just a quick presentation, and then run through something similar what we're about to do to get people's input. So there are a bunch of different ways we can do it. It just depends on what's going on in the park.
Yeah, I can, the main things would be, of course, the golf course would be open, and then
Softball going on in July?
softball tournaments are on weekends. I mean,
We would be doing that on the weekend.
that's 17th is Saturday. And we currently have 10 softball tournaments scheduled throughout the summer on weekends, those travel tournaments. And then just to see if the YMCA is having soccer that weekend. They bring a big crowd. Their summer leagues are a little smaller than their spring and fall leagues. They're still well attended.
Well, so let's tentatively call it the 17th.
Okay.
We can work together to figure out who's going to be here, and if there isn't anything specifically going on that weekend, then we'll make a bigger push online.
And if it's 95 degrees outside, you still want to do it outside, or make more sense to move it inside like a gym?
I like that.
I got it too.
We can do whatever people are most comfortable with.
Inside the Hancock Pavilion, you're out of the sun.
Right, as long as it's
it's a big.
So Randy, what does it look like? I mean, is it, with you all an iPad with 5 questions and walk around with people? I mean, what is the whole, that process look like?
We can, that's what I'm trying to, like, if there are lots of people here, we can do that. We set up tables at, different areas of the park and, just with signs that, hey, I'm going to talk to you about this.
So from our experience, the combination of the two typically works the best. We live in a world where we have to meet people where they are. And so great if they want to come to us and we have a little bit more setup to talk about. But I think the intercept surveys that you mentioned are also a valuable item in combination with that. And then also the public meeting at the end of the day.
I was just thinking, if, let's say you didn't get as much information as you wanted to that one day, if one of the schools wanted to, volunteer to do it that following weekend, or Kiwanis wanted to walk around for half a day, if there was a better weekend or something, that we could get more information from the community.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. Those tournaments that you have, is there a post-tournament survey that goes out by the organizers? If it's in-house with the city or with the county, do you all have a survey that you send out to see how people's enjoyment was? What would they like to potentially see improved as well too? Because if there's not, it's not that difficult based on the fact that we're already doing an online survey, and some of those questions will be similar. It may not be a bad idea if there's the ability to send that survey out to them where they can go on the Survey Monkey and take that, and we'll just create one specific for the softball and soccer tournaments. This way we can hear not just what the locals would like to see, but also those visitors that are coming, what would they like to see as well too? Because we're wanting a combination of local use as well as visitor draw. I think their input would be valuable too.
Yeah, the visitors, the tournaments on the weekend, those are the traffic.
Those are the ones
Those
probably would have the
are
toughest time getting a hold here on a pop-in weekend.
Is there a way to set up, and I'm showing my age, I guess, I don't know if they're called, when you scan something a little.
The QR codes?
Yeah,
Yes.
like if we make stations, so if parents that were watching their kids play had some time and they scanned or something, I don't know.
We've got out with surveys. We just recently did one in Burbank, Illinois, and we had QR codes. So we had a community meeting. This was for the whole park system. Over here, we're talking about a master plan for a specific community park. But we had QR code sheets at the community meeting that they could scan with their smartphone. And it basically is a link to the online survey.
Yeah.
So it's a great way too for people that are just coming through. And if they're too busy, to say, hey, we have an online survey. It's going to be available for so many weeks. It's only going to take, 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes of your time. Here's a QR code if you want to scan this very quickly and then take it at your leisure. I think, giving an option, because a lot of people may not have the time to stick around for a long time as well.
If we did something like that, I like the surveys that actually show how many questions are left.
Yes.
So it doesn't drag out, because you've got on surveys before. And it's like, I'm done. It's never gonna end. I mean, it's like a spoof or something. So if it could have something like that, I think that
Stop
would
it,
be
you're
good.
gonna have 10 and then you got.
Yeah, it keeps it rolling. 100 later, you're going, oh my Lord.
Just a few more minutes. Not very long. All those things step down.
Yeah.
We try to make it very short and sweet. We want to get the information, be direct. I think there is an opportunity for the open-ended questions. So even if you answer one question, you decide to say, I don't answer this, it'll move you to another one, or it gives you an opportunity at the end. It's not mandatory, but if you have some additional comments on a question, it allows you to kind of maybe fill in a sentence or something. So it's very flexible. And again, timing is key. So you want to keep it a very short and sweet survey so that it's, again, not taking very long.
And start with the questions that are the most important to get the answers to. And then if they do drop off, we've got the bulk of what we need to justify the direction the program set.
Brandon, the Kiwanis has a event, longest day of play. That may, I'll try to find a date for it. Okay. And get it started.
They're not doing it this year.
They're not going to do this.
Last time they contacted me.
Really?
2 weeks ago.
So,
All right. Well, I think with that, how are we doing? Well, Andy, if you would like to kick us off on the workshop.
So I'm a design principal, so I focus more on the design side. I love schedule, I love, all the stuff that these guys are going through, but that allows me to focus what I call on the fun and visioning kind of stuff. So, we've gone through this exercise with 10 people. We've done this in community meetings with over 100 people. And so our goal today on this workshop is really to get your ideas. We call this a brainstorming session. So, we really want everyone to participate. This gives everyone an equal opportunity to voice some concerns or have some ideas, and we want to gather all these ideas. And the way this is going to work is basically, I'm going to, if we can pass out these here, we're going to give everyone one comment card. Here's some pens if they need a pen. The first part of this is the first, no, that'd be good. We want all of your comments. We made more time. The first part of this is brainstorming. So this is about any ideas you have. The focus question, and I know it's hard to read, so I'll read it for you. What is your vision for improvements at Lakeview Park? So that's a very broad question. What do you envision as far as improvements at Lakeview Park?
Just one answer.
But we want brainstorm. So as many ideas as you can jot down in the next 5 to 7 minutes or more. We want everything. So this is kind of just like a brain dump. Just come in and say, okay, boy, I wish, there was more. I'm just throwing examples, don't take these verbatim, but I wish there was more parking. I wish there was less parking, or I'm not quite sure where I'm going. I wish there was better wayfinding, or this facility is maybe a little outdated. We'd like to have some improvements for this, or there's a gap in maybe some recreational services that there's a demand for, and we really think that we could, the park and the community could use this. Again, just throwing some ideas out. It could be physical, it could be program related, it can be economic driven as far as revenue streams. So this is a pretty, improvements is a pretty broad category. So I'm going to let you just kind of think a little bit. Sometimes I talk too much, so giving you a little quiet time to think about it and let that stew. But before just thinking about this, the next step, just to give you a little precursor of what's coming up, is we're going to take, hopefully you get 5 to 10 ideas written down pretty quickly. We're going to ask you to prioritize those to your top 2. Then we're going to have you write them down on a sticky note, and then we're going to be the gathering of these top 2 ideas per person and start putting them on this lovely sheet up here and then prioritizing and categorizing those ideas. Again, this is just a step in the community engagement process of this group of people in this room. I think there's 10 here, so let me know if I miscount. There's basically 2 per person.
We're going to be great on these.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Names or no names?
Your own discretion.
Don't be cheating. Don't be cheating, Dr. Barber. I'm saying cheating.
So don't do anything with the sticky notes on the first phase of our brainstorming session, but these will be valuable as we go into the next steps. And we'll want to use these big fat pens for the sticky notes. So after we go to that phase of hand these out. One thing you might think about too, as you're going through this exercise is, where have you traveled and been to other community parks that might be similar to Lakeview Park? That you personally have traveled with friends or family? So what has been successful? Like when you go to visit somewhere, what do you look for when you're going on a family vacation or you're with your family? And I know family vacations differ depending. I've got 3 daughters that are all teenagers, and I need some alone time every now and then. 2 going to be in college this coming fall, but we look obviously at different things when you're just starting a family and you have toddlers versus college students versus if you're going to destination that's more sports related. Maybe you're on a traveling sports team, and so maybe you're looking at things differently in that realm. So maybe think about what facilities or community parks have you visited around this area or even outside of the state that you think might be some improvements that might fit or be considered. Again, we're not saying whatever's written down is going to happen. We're just saying, what are some of the possibilities? What are some things that you might envision could be a possibility? I like the word possibility because we're not locking ourselves into saying we need to have this, because we're not at that stage. We're gathering information. We're going to go out to the community. We're going to do an online survey. And so we're here to listen. This meeting is all about listening and gathering ideas. We're going to prioritize some of those up here in the categories, but again, this is just one step of a full process. We're till 3:30. Maybe a couple more minutes. Does anyone have at least 3 to 5 ideas written down? Hopefully. Okay. Keep writing again.
No pressure.
You need a minimum of 20 ideas per card. You got to write small. And again, it can be physical related, program related, maintenance too. Maybe it's the drainage is not working, and so there's road closures because it goes over a certain path and you can't access certain places. Again, I'm just throwing things out there, but it could be also just the physical presence of the improvements, and the maintenance side is part of that as well. That are there some things that can be helped improved from what I call curb appeal? So from the very start, when you're coming to the park, as everyone knows, your first impressions of that experience happens before you even pull into the entrance, or when you're looking into that entrance. And so maybe thinking about that arrival experience, and what have you seen at other parks that guide you to that park and then get you to the point where you're parking, and then where do you go from there? We'll take another minute or two, and if you need more time too, that's fine. Right? I think we have plenty of time for this. I'm going to demonstrate the next phase here as you guys are writing.
Sharp ranks here.
Everybody's gonna know my stuff. I'm
One
not
thing
detailed.
New maintenance facility.
One thing that might be part of this that I failed to mention is the idea of partnerships. So one thing that could be part of the improvements is working better with others. Is it forming better connections with some of the local universities and education institutions that are around this area that might benefit, are currently using the park, but could benefit using that park even more. So the idea of partnerships, I think, is very key as part of this too, that will lead to some improvements that are going to really benefit the community again. So I just wanted to bring that up as another thing as far as writing ideas down. That might be part of that, is as part of the vision, is coming up with a plan of looking at those partnerships, whether they're public or private partnerships or both. And so after you feel like you've kind of jogged your brain and done a brain dump of 5 to 10 ideas, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to first off write big. I know these are small sticky notes, but Shannon's going to come around with some markers, and you want to write one idea per note. So if you can keep it to preferably 3 or 4 words per note, try to be concise. So one example might be explore more partnerships or just something very concise. So you wanted to write down your top two. So look at your list before you start writing on the sticky notes. Prioritize your list and say, okay, if you only had, again, we're going to collect your cards so that all these ideas are not going to get lost. So first off is we're going to gather all this, but prioritize your ideas to 2 ideas, and then write really big, 2 or 3 words, 4 or 5 words at most on each of these. And then we're going to go around and actually start sticking them up here and try to see kind of what ideas we have and then start categorizing those into some categories. And we're going to let you guys kind of decide what category they should be in by having some dialogue. So first off, write big and 1 idea per note. Hopefully this doesn't fall down across this here.
Yeah, look across the road.
And then once you have an idea, again, we'll come around and I'm going to start gathering and you will help me, Shannon, too. We're going to gather the sticky notes. Like I say, if you and Brady want to do that, I'm going to try to categorize or at least stick them up here in similar areas, and then we're going to start the dialogue of where these might want to reside. Awesome, that would be helpful. I'm going to get a couple more sticky notes here. And feel free if you wanted to start, you can just kind of stick these up here, and if you see a couple that might be in a similar category, like new improvement.
Thanks, sir.
Just for the rumor, Dr. Marvin is cheating off mine, just for the record.
I'm not shocked. Always got still good ideas.
So like one might be indoor type facilities versus outdoor. Again, these are gonna move around, aren't they?
Did you write left-handed so we couldn't tell which one was
Yeah.
yours? I thought that's what you
We're
were
gonna
doing.
do some drawings on this beautiful wall.
It just says new maintenance facility.
Exactly, yeah, we're pretty sure.
I bumped it down to number 3. So it's not. Because there's no way else it is.
We got plenty of.
No, that's not true.
If you're
That's not
sure, you
true.
can just pick-
I just think in this setting, it will come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be a win or a new facility.
Right.
Improve movement and flow.
I think we need some new ink in that printer, whatever Andy printed off there. When he started saying there was something written on there, I said, there is.
Yeah, I think it was kind of.
I know that's not what we did.
Yeah, so basically, categories. This is circulation. Any other,
Did you all move from down there on River Beach? Down there on tennis court? Yeah, yeah. Somebody said that they were had kids in there doing things, but.
Is that all of them?
Right anymore?
Is that all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody.
Come in. Yeah, and then she comes over 3 weeks, then she comes back for a week, and then she goes to UCLA for 10 days for that medical. And I heard back from her.
Combining,
He goes with her head card. They both have
feel
surgery.
free to. Feel free to.
Oh, really? I can't do it. Well, it sounds like I've worked with you. Should ask that first.
So,
So we have all of the sticky notes. Does everyone feel like they've, and are there any other? Let me try to.
Andy, you look a little disappointed. Do we, not do good? I mean, it looks like you get ready to get your own sticky pads and start filling them out. I mean,
I told you what to do, but you didn't do it.
So as we're looking at this, one thing that sometimes we'll do is, I'll ask the question. I'm not just gonna read through these a little bit so you can get a little bit of idea, because I know my eyesight's really bad, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can read it toward the back. So if you want to shuffle around and be able to see a little bit more, feel free to do that. But essentially, it looks like we have some ideas on trails and flow through the park. We have an idea on more programming on here. We're talking about some indoor facilities in this category, more tennis court, multi-use courts, performing arts, amphitheater, again, amphitheater, tennis courts. We got two ideas here, so that will kind of play into this one over here. Unique to Franklin County, something for everyone. So being inclusive and making something that's unique to Franklin County. So again, something that's not just repeated in an adjacent recreation facility. Softball fields, turf softball fields, revenue sources, more of water feature gardens, sustainability gardening. And then this one is kind of on its own as far as, looking at operations and administrative, as far as a suggestion of combining city, county, parks. Again, we're not here to unpack on whether this is, a feasibility or anything like this. We're just getting ideas at this point. So based on what you see up here, are there any gaps or any ideas that you see that are missing that you would say, wow, we maybe need to add one or two more ideas before we vote? So the next step, just again to give you a precursor of what's coming up, everyone is going to get these two valuable blue dots, and no, you can't sell it to your neighbor for a certain amount. But what our hope here is to get what we call call it a shotgun pattern, but we get to start to see the idea of what your priorities are. So now that you've seen what everyone else has written up here, then you can come in and say, I'm gonna give you two blue dots. Out of the two most important things, now that you've seen everyone else's ideas, I'm gonna put a blue dot either on a category or on something a little more specific. So the first thing we're gonna do is categorize these before I hand these out. But before we do that, are there any other ideas that we want to throw in here that you see as a gap?
you had mentioned something. You had mentioned something about tying the school systems in, and I think that's why, they're all present at this meeting. So I don't know if that can be put into something.
Yeah, and again, we're just trying to get all the ideas up. So if you want to write down another idea you think is missing, is there anything else that might be a bigger picture idea that should be up here?
I'll say this, the superintendents and myself, who are educators, appreciate this idea of the sticky notes, which is part of the educational process. So
Okay.
they think already they're being inclusive.
Again, like I said, and this is just a great opportunity because we're at the beginning of this process. There are no preconceived ideas. We know everyone has different opinions and ideas. Everyone had, I'm a tennis player and I just started playing some pickleball. So if I was in this group, I might say, I want to add 10 pickleball courts out here, but I'm one voice, I'm one person. Other people might want more equestrian. So we're here just to hear all these ideas and get them up and then go to the broader community. Because again, this is a small cross section, but a very important cross section of representatives from the community. So you had a question.
Yes, and this is also, could be another group to add to as a partner. There's a MAPP group run by our local Franklin County Health Department.
Okay.
That is an umbrella for a lot of organizations whose goal in gathering together is to talk about community health. And I think that might be a good focus.
That's a good idea. That's really good.
So if you were to summarize that into an idea when we start voting on things, is there a, it's a partnership?
Community health.
So the idea of improving community health.
Yes.
So again, I'm just trying to get a couple more, if there's any gaps, if you want to write down 2 or 3 words on what you think that is, we can add that to it. Is there any other ideas or?
Yes. I didn't know how to put this into words, but again, I keep looking at Houston over here, and I'll look at you, Houston, well, look at you, Houston. And, one of the things that we're all been in education, and one of the things we hear a lot about is this idea that our kids don't have anything to do outside of school. They need activities to do on the weekends, at night, with their friends. They have to go outside of this community if they don't want to just go to the movies, in other words. So I didn't know how to encapsulate that in terms of an idea. I put multi-purpose facility because I really think that should include lots of different potentially, I'm going down swinging on this idea of an ice rink.
So it seems like we're age specific, so I don't want to get into specifics right now, but are you talking about more like team programming or
No,
team
I'm not talking about
activity?
programming, I'm talking about something that's going to draw people to.
But a certain age group though, you're talking more age
Not
specific, or
necessarily.
trying to track tweeners to early 20s
Or
or?
to 60 as far as I'm
But
concerned.
let me ask you this, when you say they go to other communities, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like,
so-
what are those activities?
Yeah.
And what other age groups it is?
Yeah, we don't have
New
them all
family
there.
or
We got
toddlers
kids
or-
to go
Right.
to shop because there literally is nothing to do. We've got kids going in two different directions to go to ice rinks or to skating rinks
Okay.
or to putt-putt golf courses.
You're
Again,
talking about intergenerational as a family destination
yeah,
from age 1 to 101, that if you have a toddler and a tweener and a teenager and a grandparent or a caregiver, that all of them are wanting to hop in a
and
vehicle, SUV, and come to the same place and be excited about something.
I love tennis and Houston loves tennis. And, I was a tennis coach for a million years.
We'll talk.
I love the idea of tennis courts, but there's a lot of people that don't play tennis. So this idea of something where it's a destination where our kids can go and do things. And not just kids, but adults and little ones, yes. So I don't know how to say that, I just said it. So.
Yeah.
Put that in 2 words, please.
Two words, two sticky
In one word, then
Multi-generational. So we're looking for multi-generational activity.
multi-generational activity sound, yeah, the idea that it's for the whole family.
And multi-use facilities, the tennis court, the tennis court can be a pickleball court, it can be an archery range, it can be a number of things, not.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, multi-purpose, indoor and outdoor and stuff, but to cover, to reach out to all of that.
You're trying to hit as many activity groups or user groups as possible. I know a lot of the courts, sometimes they stripe them for pickleball and tennis.
Yes.
Sometimes the diehard pickleball and tennis players don't like that as much. But, and sometimes they're temporary. So, depending on what programs you have and if have beginning tennis for young kids versus those that are diehard players that are going out and playing a 3-setter, you have different, again, ideas on how you use that particular core facility. Any other ideas before we start voting? I'm going to hand out these dots in a little bit.
I don't want to miss out to say this, but I would like for this facility to be a host site for tournaments, both regional and national capability. And I didn't say what sport, but whatever the community determines is that, but for youth and competitive sports, because I do think if we don't do that, we're missing on opportunity.
Kentucky State shaking their heads, everybody's not here. That's why we invited everybody here.
Because people have to travel to E-Town, they gotta travel to Indy, Grand Park, they gotta go far away. I mean, Lexington didn't do it, they didn't take the chance to do it. Louisville doesn't have their own facility, they have Parkland Sport, but they don't have these interconnected opportunities. So I think it's our chance to really do it.
To piggyback off that, we're very close to finishing our master plan for the city. Capitol View Park has been a focus of that. And we're looking at multiple improvements to fields and multi-purpose courts, soccer fields, lighting, everything. So we're at a real good chance here. Lakeview, Capitol View, Kentucky State facilities, school facilities with brand new turf. To really, they're spread out a little bit, but they're all right here.
In the
pretty
scheme
darn
of things,
close.
it's Franklin though, I mean, it's a couple miles.
Yeah, exactly.
Not much.
It can really
So I don't see-
help the city.
That's a good point. I mean, there's a multi-use venue, which that's pretty broad. Is there a performing softball field, softball? But is there anything up here that you guys see that are related to the idea of tournament or what do we call it, what destination
Yeah.
sports facility?
Not,
I mean, this is all
not
multi-
singularly, but in combination, yes, and more so because of the comment that you just made with, the Capitol View Park is what I think you called it.
Yeah.
You know, in order to capture those nationals, it does take multiple venues in order to do that. And so the fact that you guys are already thinking in that line is fantastic. A lot of times we'll go in and those aren't thoughts that have been organic up to that point. And so it takes a lot more to get that to start moving forward and gain momentum. So I think that is definitely,
I don't specifically see that
I
right
would,
now. but
I would say specifically tournament, regional, national draw.
Right.
That'll be a good enough reminder.
Right, then on there, we'll go in. Now, our next step is to categorize these, and then we're gonna vote. So what I'm gonna do, so I don't write on this nice, beautiful wall with a Sharpie, because I'm sure that I'm gonna be painting that at some point time in the future.
The weekend we're down here, I think.
Yes, we'll have a painting party, and I'm sure that.
Just for you.
Not on that wall.
We got about 5 miles of fence.
I saw that fence, yeah. That's nice. We got the tournaments regional, so you can see its own.
Yeah.
And we can, again, we'll put it here for now.
The reason why I say that is you're looking at the tournaments, obviously the athletic is going to be the main draw, but everything else up there is an ancillary activity or service that needs to be incorporated for those who are spectators and not participating on a constant basis. So I think it fits.
So this is gonna be a little bit more of a difficult exercise, is we wanna come in and put a category over these to kind of summarize what we're capturing, or on some of these like this may be its own category. Like we can come in, maybe we start with the easy ones and say, okay, tournaments in a regional and a national destination isn't really represented as much in some of these other writings. So would this be okay to have this as its own separate category up here?
Sure.
That you can vote on or not vote on? Everyone, do you think that's good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm looking for head nods and yeah, I think that makes sense, or
Yeah.
no, you're crazy, I think you should do something different with that sticky note.
Well, I think, I would just like to say, I think there needs to be a nice balance too. I think talking to Mr. Kopp about the e-tournament facility, you know, where he was present, employed down there, but really couldn't use the facilities
Right.
until a nephew came from out of town to use it for a big tournament. So I don't think we're looking to build some monster sports facility here. I think there needs to be a nice balance between a park for our community, for the people that live here, but then on weekends, you know, it's tournaments that are generating money for our hotels and restaurants and things. So I think it's two parts to that.
And I think, you know, and again, this is such a broad thing, there's a lot of conversation to unpack this as
Right.
far as user groups, who's using it, operations, when is it used by the community?
Right.
When is it, you know, how much revenue, and this is a big one to unpack at a later date.
Yep.
If I may, to that point though, a lot of the ancillary ideas that are up on the board are indicative of things that you would find in a neighborhood or a community park.
Right.
So those ancillary services will be the ones that are going to be most utilized by the local community.
Right. I just wanted to say it out loud because I don't, you know, if somebody's watching this, I don't want them to think, oh, we're just gonna build a sports complex only, and that's not, at least my intention.
Here, and something I want to add to that. I was in E-Town when the E-Town Sports Park was built. I lived there for several years, never once got to experience it, as Michael said. And one of the reasons behind that was it was an independent project that the city put together.
Mhm.
They did not ask for collaboration with universities like ECTC that was there. They didn't ask for collaboration with the school system. I'll pledge today, I've been pledging since I've been here, that if we can collaborate and assist and provide the facilities that we've already paid for and put in our two high schools, those two turf fields, to be part of this, to help and to assist, I would ask Kentucky State to consider the same thing. I'll ask Houston, since he so conveniently left the meeting, the same thing. Let's all work together.
Yeah.
Because we just want our community to thrive as a result.
That's the only way this is gonna work.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep, thank you.
Some great dialogue and some great ideas. So as we go through this, what I'm gonna do is just look for some ideas and make some suggestions, and then feel free to ask some suggestions as well. So this category, updated trails, increased connection points, trails, improved movement and flow within the park. So what would you say would be a good title to kind of put these, do these belong together? And if they do, what would be an overarching title for, or category for these three?
Connectivity.
Connectivity. Anyone else have any connectivity? Does that seem like a good suggestion, or do you want to add another word to it? It could be, try to keep it to maybe 2 words or
I
so.
was thinking more like
Trails,
walking trails.
walking trails. So part of that is increased connection points and trails. So that can be internal, or also that can also be connecting people to the park to make sure that they can get there more easily and safely by bike and walking. Increased connection points, trails, so that it can also be external, internal. So it seems like connectivity, improved connectivity, updated trails, and there's trails there now, so it could be that you need
What about
more upkeep, or maybe adding some trails. I'm sorry.
Movement connectivity.
Movement
So
connectivity.
I don't want to exclude anything, if bikes were part of it as well.
Right, bikes and walks.
But you do think walking is the normal movement part.
One thing I don't see up here, that's a good point, is vehicular circulation. Do you see anything that's related to parking or vehicular circulation?
Just
That one thing, flow, I
Maybe,
believe.
I guess this could
Yeah.
relate to that.
Circulation and connectivity.
So is this related to more pedestrian? Like this one is more trail, so that's, biking, walking, rollerblading, whatever it might be. Improved movement and flow within the park. Does this belong here, or do you think this is its own separate?
I think that goes to the overall, your vision as far as the layout of this park, I mean, that's to me, and I know the park committee's even talked about, we don't know if the road's even in the right place or the entrance, why are we coming in off of Steventown instead of the main, road here and things like that. So to me, that's kind of an overall thing.
So do we think this belongs with the other two, or is it
It
its
could
own
be under
separate?
somewhere, I think it could be.
It could also be circulation and connectivity, which Shannon said, it does
Oh, up here,
actually
is that all?
combine both of them. And we all know, as we traverse from one place to another, if it's not an easy connection, it's less likely we're gonna take it. And so I think that really flows with all of it, the circulation and connectivity.
I like that, because that gets the walking, biking trails, and then also the connectivity within the park. So again, circulation and connectivity, is that capture that category? Actually, as we go through, you have good penmanship probably, and I don't as well.
Spelling is where
That's all right.
Google's your friend.
Circulation and connectivity. All right, the next one, indoor, outdoor, after-school programming, program for kids. So again, is this about increased programming?
So it sounds like.
Or what do you, again, this is not me coming in and telling you what these should be. I want your input on what you think that category should be.
I definitely believe that it's increased programming for our youth. And I think that if we're talking about partnering, and we're also talking about making this park as accessible for everybody involved, we need to have programming. I am totally on board with the idea of having a multi-purpose facility, but it has to be functional for everyday use, not just for our tournaments. So if we have a multi-purpose facility that throughout the week we have programming, we have kids camps, we have after school care, and then when it's time, we're able to host the state tournament in softball or the state tournament in basketball, these type of things. I think that it is definitely all inclusive for all factors of this community.
Awesome. No, I agree. So I think we call this increased programming or all-inclusive programming, or
Increased
programming is, it seems like a good title there. Okay. Is everybody okay with?
Maybe for all, increased programming for all.
Okay, maybe for all in parentheses underneath of that, yeah.
And space, I mean, you gotta have space.
Right.
You gotta have indoor and outdoor.
Right.
That's one of our biggest problems. We don't have.
And then we're going on, now all of these I think are gonna be coming up, just like you said, because we're into the indoor right here on this category. So moving forward, I want to try to get through here because I know I'm probably gonna be running out of time a little bit here. Indoor rec facility, indoor track facility, indoor sports complex, including track, indoor multi-use facility. So what category do you think would we put underneath all four of these that would capture all of this?
Well, there are 4 words, there are 4 that have one.
Yeah. This isn't a trick question. I know this is a hard one, but I think we can handle it.
Yeah.
Indoor recreational spaces.
Indoor recreation.
Multi-use, or multi-use, because I think one of the things.
Some things can be outdoor as well, so I think indoor might be.
Indoor activity.
With this property, I think multi-use is pretty much implied.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
gonna have an overarching, and it's gonna be in almost every one of these components, multi-use. That's one of the things that we got loud and clear when we were reading the RFP and then talking with you all.
We have some of that coming in here, so indoor recreation, period, like indoor recreation facility or indoor activities. Okay. This one is a little bit easier, I think, hopefully tennis court and multi-purpose playing courts. So, I mean, this could, we've done, sometimes basketball and tennis or just small, sports courts, multi-purpose playing courts, outdoor. So what do we think for this one? We keep these together and look at more outdoor multi-purpose courts?
I think they could be, yeah.
Does that seem
Outdoor
outdoor sports
tennis
courts?
court there next to you too.
Yeah, oh, yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
that's why we wrote that one up there to.
Oh, did this one come from here?
Correct. It
Okay,
came from
okay,
one
so
with
we
two
got
on
that.
there, just to make sure we had it as.
So outdoor multi-purpose courts?
Mhm.
Does that seem, okay, moving on. Performance Arts Center, multi-use venue. I'm gonna make sure we can read these here a little bit. Amphitheater, performing arts center, amphitheater. So again, kind of an outdoor venue for performing arts, it looks like. So what kind of, this one should be an easier one probably as well, but.
You just said it.
Well, actually, when I write performing arts center, I'm talking about an indoor
So
facility.
this is more of an indoor facility or.
And I was talking about a building, but you could do outdoor.
You could do a performing arts center connected to a nice outdoor, that's what I'm saying, multi-use, that where you could do outdoor. things.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Would arts and entertainment capture all of that?
I don't know, that's.
That's not exactly, well, it was, but that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking more in terms of what.
Yeah, I think if you don't consider the Grand Theater, which is not really a performing arts center, or the facility at Kentucky State, we're the only state capital that does not include some type of a performing arts venue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all are aware of that or not. Dover, Delaware has a performing arts center for you.
So the arts and entertainment is pretty broad. I mean, that means that
It would work.
we have a Dave and Buster's, which is all indoor video games and
Yeah, I
stuff.
think
So
that's what
that
they
could
want.
be part of an arts and entertainment. I'm just throwing out, the broad
I don't
category.
think we were thinking in those terms. But.
Right. So, it could be, that's what I'm trying to narrow down. So I think the idea of just performing arts center, period, could be outdoors or indoors. So maybe, does that categorize that performing arts center?
What he's just saying there, the combination of the two things is.
Because an amphitheater can be part of that.
Yeah.
And that's all kind of inclusive of that category.
Michael, I mean, you've seen some of these amphitheaters,
Well, and I was the other one that wrote that, so I was also thinking indoor and then kind of like Iroquois Park in Louisville setting for the amphitheater.
Yes.
So I was probably the other sticky up there.
That could be a venue, if it's like the Iroquois Park, where, you could do graduations.
Absolutely, you could do, I mean, just Google that place, it stays busy year round up there.
I don't want to backtrack too much, sorry.
Sure, no problem.
But you was mentioning too, we used to use Lakeview for our cross-country course. And I don't think we've done that for a pretty long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a pretty long time, but that's another outdoor, I know it says outdoor sports courts,
Right, but
it
the
could-
idea,
It could be a course.
these are more,
you know,
more,
so-
more events that
Yeah.
my daughter
Cross-country
did
is
cross-country
huge.
in junior high, and we go to different places, and
Yeah, and just thinking about layout for that purpose, maybe just
Mhm.
making sure that that's under the outdoor court space, whatever. And then the other thing is when someone said something about all inclusive, I couldn't help but think about how many times they've done senior games here, like some type of senior game, and they do everything, like the senior games host whatever sport there is, they have it. And this could be a good possibility, to just make sure we add them to the partnership list. Because senior games draws people from literally all over the country. I mean, it's huge. They're huge when they do it. Like K-State hosted, like their swim competition, next 2 years ago or so. And it just could be a huge connection for us here in Frankfurt too, so I don't want to leave them out. Frank McCloud is probably the best.
I give that say,
person.
Frank McCloud, I think that would be the.
He definitely is a stakeholder in all of this, so.
And that might be, here's a partnership with local schools, but the idea of having some of those programmings again with cross-country or some of those events that this park could provide that.
Yeah.
All right, great comments. We'll make sure we get that included in our notes as well. This is really about unique to Franklin County, no generics, something for everyone. And again, kind of multi-use, multi-generational.
I thought
So,
that last comment that we talked about kind of fit with the unique Franklin County, something for everybody. That when we talk about like the tournaments and everything,
right.
that was over there.
So what do you think on that category for unique to Franklin County, no generics, something for everyone? Again, multi-use, multi-generational. So any ideas on what might fit up here?
How about multi-use facilities for all, or for everyone?
So that hits this one, but then the unique to Franklin County and no generics would mean that no one else has done it before, right? Or it might be, well, or surrounding the area, there isn't one that's close by, so this will be unique that, for the community, but also maybe drawing from outside the community a little bit.
I'm not sure that fits with the other two.
Something for everyone, unique to Franklin County. That's true. This is kind of multi-generational, multi-use, something for everyone. This
Something
covers.
for everyone might go under increased programming.
Oh,
right.
On the right. The third from the right.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, for the increased programming?
Yeah.
But that's a good suggestion. Do you think increased programming will help something for everyone? Is that,
Oh, yes.
if someone's shaking their head, that's not the same. Why is that not the same?
Because there are a lot of people who are park users who would not probably participate in an organized program.
Okay.
But they want amenities that are available for them to use when they come to the park.
Okay, so it's not related to programming, but maybe
It's not
physical
programming,
facilities that are
it's
here.
amenities.
Okay.
And the, unique to Franklin County is more your question about when you go somewhere on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to a park or a part of the community that really tells you something about that community, that's unique to that community. It's almost like you get to know the community because of the personality of that space. And that's mine. So that's what I meant by unique to Franklin County, something that you don't find anywhere else, that when someone comes to Lakeview, they know something about Franklin County.
So what would be again, a title that we might want to put underneath there as just a category? Again, you can vote on any of these. So just because we're putting this up here doesn't mean you can't put a dot on any of these below.
I think you just put the unique.
Unique recreation?
I almost think unique to Franklin County is.
I moved that.
That's the category.
Or is this the category?
Because
Unique to Franklin County?
we gotta look at it holistically, not just,
Right.
not
So we
just
could do
for
this.
what's in the garden, but for our utilize
Yeah.
as well too.
Oh, you did?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is that all right? Is that unique to Franklin County as a category?
Because I think that needs
Where
to
did you
apply
apply?
almost across the board to some.
Right. I mean, obviously, this could come in and
Just gotta
get
get
some of these others as well.
Like, no parks.
All right, well, I'm trying to move along. Softball fields, turf softball fields, update softball fields, immediate revenue source. So again, this is about softball, obviously. So what would be a softball fields, more increased softball fields?
It's pretty generic to softball, those two.
Yeah, so that seems to make some sense.
Better
Softball
better
fields,
softball facilities,
Yeah, because I'm kind of,
upgrade softball facilities.
because it's not just the fields, you know, I personally would want to see like shade canopies and things like that, you know, it's the
Softball
bleachers.
field enhancements?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the total thing, not
Yeah,
just the fields.
it needs lighting, parking,
Yeah.
turf, shade, maintenance
So
facilities.
improved softball fields.
So I could ask a question. There is something that I don't see up here that I saw out in the park, and that's soccer fields. So soccer fields or the multi-purpose fields, the spaces that could be used for multi-purpose sports.
Well, I think that brings up the point, just because these people in the room, you know, like I don't have kids that play soccer, but obviously, and to me, one of the reasons we chose you all is to look at Central Kentucky as a whole. And so let's say there's no lacrosse fields and that's the next upcoming sport. You know, I mean, I think we need to be looking in the future, not just what kids are doing today. So I don't know what the trends are. We don't personally know what the trends are.
Would it be more about updating the athletic fields as a whole rather than just specifically the softball?
What would you mean by updating?
Well, I would say updating with more defined spaces and defined use so that people, when they walk upon it, they can see, all right, I know what this is, I know how it's supposed to be used. There's a couple of fields out there that don't have the soccer goals on them. I can tell that they've been crowned and they've been created as they should have, but that may not be something that everybody picks up on. So basically making sure that they're enhanced to the point that they're easily recognized as to what the use is at that location. So that could be the multi-purpose rectangular fields as well as the softball diamonds as well. Yes, Scott.
Isn't that part of the community engagement process?
Yeah, so let me step in a little bit, because I want to make sure, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time, because everyone needs to vote their 2 dots. So I think this is one small group.
Yeah,
So if soccer doesn't come up in this group, it doesn't mean that it's not important. or
I
that
can
it's
assure you,
not
soccer was
prioritized.
at the forefront of this young man's mind. He's got kids that play it, and they
Yeah.
travel all over. But my whole thing is, as an elected leader, the only thing I want to see is better for the community, it helps our community grow, helps our kids. My input, for me, my kids probably will never get to come over here and say, hey, that played at that field or that field. I'm okay with that, but maybe my grandkids will.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, you've got 1, 2, these groups, along with the independent system, they're gonna give you valuable information. So I think the community part of it is gonna be unbelievable. Once we start finding out, and I think you'll be overwhelmed by the soccer.
You're gonna get one.
Yeah, it's- we're gonna have.
Just one piece, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just starting, just
Yeah, I know.
chiseling at a, you know, we have an iceberg, we have a tip, and we're gonna get bigger and bigger and get more input as we go down from our
We'll
first
need
meeting here.
15 more of these sheets.
And so, we're gonna get some community input as well. So I think, can we just say improve softball fields for right now? Does that work?
Yeah, softball.
Again, this is not all inclusive.
Let's say facility, softball facility.
Improve softball
Athletic
facilities.
facilities, improve that.
Yeah, I wouldn't just stick to softball. I mean,
Improve
you
athletic
can play little
facilities.
league on those
It's
baseball.
a softball squad.
And then, I'm gonna go quickly through here, and we can come back around and have some more dialogue. Water featuring garden, sustainability gardens for community. So is this something that is more gardens for the community, so more active, like community gardens where you have a garden plot and you're gardening here? Or is this more of a demonstration garden that's a garden club or someone else is doing that you walk through and you see, you know, native plants and a water feature, and maybe can someone expound or an idea on these two, or maybe what this category is? Because it's kind of two, community gardens is a totally separate type of thing than a garden
I
that
don't
is.
know how much community garden would use at this facility, just because, you know, the homes around here have pretty big land.
Okay.
You know, I didn't write either of those, but I'm thinking almost like Arboretum, you know, it's maybe the field they're trying to get, but I didn't write those, so I don't know.
Beautification.
Right, you know, something park
Yeah.
setting, prairies, things like that.
Landscape.
I'm not putting words in people's mouths, but that's what I think of.
And I agree, I mean, there's some beautiful trees out here. I think, again, there's some good bones. I think there hasn't been we can talk offline, a tree study done on the quality and condition of the trees, and coming up with a game plan of, you know, planting some additional trees as those, from a shade standpoint, those that are declining or that might need to be taken out, looking at that holistically.
Would that be somewhat environmental
It definitely would be, because the idea, so beautification, I think, is a good one. Oh, that's fine. Part of that is environmental, is how do you maintain that? Because you don't want to have to use a ton of watering and maintenance and increase the amount of staff you need to maintain that. So looking at ways of what size is it? Is it native plants? Is it a rain garden where you already have a wet area that continues to, help reduce the amount of mowing that you might have? So those are all considerations as part of beautification, is that side of the environmental responsibility and sustainability of those landscape plantings. So that's a great point for this one. All right, combined city, county, parks department. Is that its own?
That's on its own.
Okay. Wow, that was a good one. That one was fast. All right. Partnerships with local schools. So this is just kind of partnerships in general, but is this its own category, or is it about increasing partnerships, or?
Well, and I just wrote that one after, and I think it goes back to what these gentlemen said, as far as we're all in this together, and it's building the thing for the community. So that could be.
Increased programming?
Which we have, the programming in here, increased programming, so here we're talking.
With the school.
Yeah,
We're talking community relations, and that first, or that category next to it, the orange one, yeah, right there.
Combined
That
city.
can fall under that same category, community relations.
Okay, so these are all about community relations.
Yes.
These two here. I think it's a decent suggestion. What does other people think? Does that community relations capture that? Again, it's okay to be kind of on that broad category. I think the idea here is about partnerships and working together to provide a unique community park that everyone can use. Community health focus. So then this goes back to another discussion. Is this its own category, or is there another thing that would be over the top of that? Community health focus. Well, that's pretty broad. So the idea, I guess, is that, if you have people out here are using it from a health standpoint for fitness, or.
Would that go under increased programming?
I think so. I think it can, because I think
Community health
wellness.
Because you come out here and people are moving, and you're increasing their health, is that? I'm seeing some decent head nods.
Yes, I think that falls under.
But I mean, I would like to add to that. I mean, it's not just to me, health, it would be maybe areas that are good for kids with autism, kids that might be blind, special needs, things like that. I mean, I think that could be a whole nother.
Well, that comes under increased programming.
Right,
so
exactly, yeah,
it's just that even more.
Yep.
Okay, I like that suggestion. I think that's good. All right. Now this is the more difficult part, and we're a little over our time here, but this can be done pretty quickly. We can divide and conquer. Everyone gets 2 important dots. So now we're narrowing down on, you can take a dot and put it on a category and say, overall, the Performing Arts Center and all of these, I support that, or I really want to hope on the amphitheater, I'm going to vote for the amphitheater. Again, you can put 2 dots on one thing. Say, I'm really all about community relations. I'm going to put 2 dots on this one, or 1 on here, so that you can put your dot wherever you want on this board. But again, you're trying to pick your 2 most important items that you feel are the most important to you. And then at the end of this exercise, we're going to see a little bit of a pattern on some preferences. Again, just for this group, this is the beginning. Because this is going out to the community, we just need to make sure that we're communicating that this is one exercise. This is not, because you see a lot of dots in one of these categories, doesn't mean that's what anyone is moving forward with.
Right.
This is just gathering information. We're going to do the same thing with the community and move forward from there.
You want to do this by tables, or how you want to do it?
Sure, yeah, I mean, however you want to do it. I mean, if you're ready to vote, you already vote, you don't need to think about it as well. But yeah, if you want to come up 2 or 3 at a time, put your dots in, or if you want to stand back and look at it too, because I know you guys can't see it from up here, so feel free to stand up and just kind of look around and see what line you want to vote on. And
go ahead, Ann and Jackie, women first, ladies first.
Already laid it back, so however you want to do that. Again, no selling dots to anyone else. Get off.
Don't put the dots in someone else's back.
I'm gonna put two on you.
Oh, and when you're done with your city park master plan, we get to see that?
When you enclose it.
Probably about 45 days. Give or take.
Are we done? Is that?
Yeah, so this is, yeah, we're basically done with the community workshop portion. I think Brady's just gonna have a few closing comments, and then we're gonna get outside, get some fresh air, and really take in the site for those who are participating in the site visit. Yeah, if there's anything else I'm missing or anything.
Go ahead, collect your guys' cards. That's all right.
Yeah, please, we want all those brainstorming ideas, so Shannon's gonna come around and get those. We don't wanna lose, get any of the ideas that were created here today.
Watching you.
Yeah, it could be a category or it could be an individual one, so either one. If there's something that's a category you feel strongly about underneath of that, it'll be good to put it on there.
But there's stuff on the, I can run all the time, so, I mean, it's not open to the public.
There's some water
Technically.
on this table, if anybody wants
No,
water.
I'm not right now. But I mean,
I can take
there
any
will
of the
be
trash
a schedule that, you know, comes out. Things like that.
That dark stain.
Oh, no,
They were warm.
not like that, no. You'll be fine.
Everybody gets a two.
Keep the mishaps.
Yes. That's great. Charlie was giving us warm water. You know, I'd like to know. Charlie. Right. My conference. Chill, yeah.
That's in the fridge.
Yeah, that's great.
So has everybody, voted their dots?
Yeah.
Good? Okay. Well, thank you for going through this exercise. I appreciate everyone's patience and it's a really great dialogue. So I just want to thank you for going through this exercise. This is the beginning of the dialogue, where I really strongly believe that the more dialogue and communications that occur between everyone is going to get a better result. And at this point, there's no idea that's a bad idea. We want to get everything on the table, kind of vet through it. We're going to do some similar things with the community and really facilitate gathering this and then summarize this to the group from these different stakeholder groups, the community, from this group here. And then we're going to start to see maybe some things start to rise to the top as maybe some higher priorities. At the end of this process, what we're hoping to get is kind of what we call a program statement, or something that comes in and says, these are the top priorities that are rising to the top. So as we go and start actually getting our pencils out and drawing some ideas and seeing, what might be feasible, coming in with different options for consideration, this is going to help, as well as the community, guide our direction so that we're not just coming in and saying, hey, we think you should do X, Y, and Z. Although we have that expertise to do that. I mean, that's part of our. As we do that, we gather the local information. Bill's going to be looking at regional and national trends and what's happening. So when we take all of that and kind of dovetail it together, that's how we'll kind of develop a preliminary program to share with you. This is what we're seeing, what could potentially work here, and then we'll bring that back to you. Get your comments, see if it fits right, because you all know your community much better than we do. But I think with our perspective of being outsiders coming in, we'll bring a fresh perspective to that.
So Randy, so basically Phil will kind of analyze what's here now presently around central Kentucky or in Kentucky as a whole or other states, and maybe what's missing.
It'll be
and see,
multi-state.
yeah, okay, and then see what fits maybe with Franklin County.
Correct. We've already started the market analysis
Okay.
as part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
In talking with Randy, we're starting to look at the Parks and Recreation departments based on what you have on site currently, knowing that that's going to change as we go through this process. We think it's important to identify the regional service area. So what's the drive time we're looking at, or the distance that we're looking at, that will help us nail down what exists within that region. And also, where are your opportunities to create your own niche?
There you go. Thank you.
Good question, thank you. So we'll take, he's taken extensive notes, so we will get meeting notes put together for all of this and get those issued here, probably by the end of the week. Get those back to you, Charlie, if you can send those out to everyone that came. And then we're gonna, behind the scenes, we'll be working on getting the base information together and pulling the other information that we need to create the master plan together. Thank you all.
As you keep moving forward, as you know, Andrew is your contact for social media and advertising. And Charlie is your contact.
Sure.
Thank you.
That wraps it up. Again, thank you for your time. I know that everyone's busy and very valuable.
Yeah,
Now we get to do the fun with the hard part.
Are you all going to try?
I wasn't at Sal, going kind of figure out what might be the best way to start.
Thank you for your time.
He talked about it coming all together. I'm gonna make sure that I get that to you all.